It is time for your WIN podcast for super busy professionals sharing transformational moments. Your host, Chu Tang.
Welcome back to your WIN podcast. Today, I have a very special friend, Santa Mike. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
So I know you have a very special transformational moment in your life. Would you share with our audience?
I'd love to, yeah. Did I just pitch straight in?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It was a cold and miserable, wet November evening. I'd had a long day at work and I'd come home and had to go out again because I'd joined the Parent Teachers Association at the school my children go to. This must be nearly 40 years ago. And I got to the PTA meeting and it was just going along, chugging along. And then suddenly the chairman said, and oh yes, we need someone to be Santa at the school at Christmas fair. Who's going to do that? And no one was answering. We were all suddenly busy writing stuff on the table. No one can see that. And he waited a couple of minutes and then he said, we need a volunteer. Nothing. And he said, Mr. Facherty, you're new. What, you're not down to do anything at the Christmas fair. You can be Santa. Is that all right? And I thought, no, this is not all right. How can I be Santa? I was like in my 30s and there were really old people there, like in their 50s and 60s. Seemed old then. Some of them with proper bellies and even with sort of greyish beards, whereas I had a bright red, real ginger beard and hair. And I was young. I was fit. I wasn't like, an old doddery man to be Father Christmas. I was really cross. So, of course, I said, yes, that'll be fine, like you do. And I got home and I was complaining about it to my wife. I was saying, Sue, why on earth has he picked me to be Father Christmas, not one of the old boys that, would do a much better job? She said, well, he's given it to you. You just got to do the best you can. Go with it. And I was really upset with him. I think he's just, I don't know why he's picked me. And eventually I got the costume and it was a daft costume and this really daft, like cotton wool beard sort of a thing, because this was back in the 80s. And it wasn't very good at all. It was sort of a cloaky costume and you could see my shoes and my trousers underneath it. And this beard that still had a lot of my own ginger beard showing around the edges. It didn't cover it completely. And of course, my eyebrows were ginger as well and didn't think to do anything. And I had my ordinary glasses on, not Father Christmas glasses, Santa glasses. And I went along and I was quite fed up. And I was in the hall waiting for it all to begin, feeling, this is ridiculous. I'm going to make such a fool of myself. And everyone's going to be coming in saying, what's he doing? And then this was the transformational scene, because the first child that came in ran over to me, grabbed a hold of me and said, I love you, Santa. Oh. Well, actually he didn't, because in those days in England you were normally called Father Christmas, so he said, I love you, Father Christmas. Sorry, I'm sort of blurring it into Santa, because Santa is everywhere these days. Back then it was Father Christmas. So he said, I love you, Father Christmas. And I said, oh, brilliant, and hugged him back. And all of the children, despite the ginger beard and the shoes and the trousers showing, all of them, except two, just took it up. This was the real Father Christmas. I was Father Christmas. The only two who didn't were my own sons, because they could see it was me and they could hear my voice. And they didn't say anything at the time, but when we were all home, they said, why were you doing that? Why were you dressing up like Father Christmas? So I had to say to them, well, the real Father Christmas couldn't get here. So I had to step in and come along so that there'd be someone for the children to meet, because the real Father Christmas just couldn't get here on the day. And that was the day I first played Father Christmas, now Santa. And it was the start of nearly 40 years of unalloyed pleasure playing Father Christmas. And
Wow.
now, since I've retired from a proper job, that's
Mhm.
the main thing I do in the year is play Santa. And I do it for corporates. I do it at schools, at private
Mm.
parties, and home visits, either in person or over Zoom. And it's still that moment when the kids' faces light up, and
Mm.
even the grown-ups sort of, they look happier because Father Christmas is there,
Yeah.
Santa is there. And I owe that chairman of the PTA, whose name I can't even remember, I owe him such a huge debt of gratitude, even though I was really hacked off with him at the time. And that's it, really. That is my transformational scene. That changed the course of my life, because from then on, wherever I worked, I offered to be the Santa for the school kids' party,
Mhm.
the office
Mhm.
party. And when I retired, I did a bit of acting. When I retired, an actor friend said to me, I'm an elf at a garden centre and they need a Santa, and you've got a white beard. Would you come and be
Uh-huh.
Santa?
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started doing it for money. And
Oh.
I still do a lot that I don't charge for, but I do a lot now that I do charge for. And it's a lovely job. I mean, it's like people love you. No one says, "Oh, you're fun. I don't want to meet you." Can you imagine anyone saying that? But I mean, the other thing of it is sometimes you do get, if you're working in a mall or on a grotto, you do get children that are upset that waited half an hour to see you and they're only going to get a couple of minutes with you. And that's really
Oh.
why I started doing the home visits, because
Right.
you've got more time, and it's under their control. It's in their house, and particularly with say children with ADHD or
Yeah.
autism, it's it takes away that whole thing of the mall and the noise and the colours and the smells and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
crowds.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to that chairman of the PTA that I get to do that, and it's
Wow.
an absolute
Well,
privilege.
thanks to you. Yeah, wow. Yeah, yeah, because when you reach out to me for this podcast interview, and my inner child just like, ooh, I get to go talk to Santa.
Absolutely, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very good feeling, Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think you also writing books too, right?
I have written, yes, I've written and published 3 children's books so
Ah,
far. Um, Santa and the Gingerbread Man, which is just basically the story of the gingerbread man. But in the
uh,
end, poor old fox doesn't get his dinner because I'm on the way back to Santa's village and I see what's happening, and I come down in the sleigh and call the gingerbread man, and he jumps up on the sleigh and comes back to the village with us so he
mm,
doesn't get eaten.
oh,
And Santa and the Lighthouse, where Rudolph and Dasher between them
yeah.
find a lighthouse in the fog where the bulb's broken, and we can come down and help. And we haven't got anything to fix the lighthouse, but Rudolph stays with
Mm,
his red nose. I don't know why I keep
mm,
doing these hand gestures because no one can see them except you.
mm,
And the third one is Atol's Wonderful Christmas, which is my favourite, I think.
Oh,
And Atol's a little boy who wants a dog for Christmas, and he's going to get a dog because he's a bit grown up now.
mm,
But the night before, it's in Punjab, which is known as the land of the 5 rivers, and there's a flash flood, and the little dog gets washed away.
mm,
So all Father Christmas has got to give him is a stick. And he's saying, I'm really sorry, but Atol's mum said, Atol's such a good boy, he'll be all right. I'm going to be
mm,
telling you the story, but in
mm,
praise, I'll praise it. And so she gives Atol the stick and explains that the dog got washed away, but Santa's going to try and find him and rescue him and bring him back. And Atol's fine. He says, oh no, it's good stick, so I can hit things with it, and I can treat it like a dog. I can say lie down, and it
oh,
does. I can say
oh,
stay, and it does. I can say roll over, and it does. In the end, his mum said, "Look, why don't you take your stick and go for a walk?" So
oh,
he goes out, and he's walking along, and he crosses the bridge to the other side of the river because it's still a bit flooded. and he hears coughing and crying and upset, and he goes, and there's the village baker, and she's just crying away, and he says, "What's wrong?" And she said, "The flood has wet my kindling. I can't get the oven to light." And Atul says, "Well, I've got this stick I was given. Why don't we chop that up, put it in with your kindling, and set fire to it, and it will help dry out the kindling, and the oven will work." And they do that, and the oven works, so she's able to start baking the bread. And she gives him the very first bread, a roti, and says, "You take that, but don't eat it yet because it's a bit hot." And he walks on a bit further, and then he suddenly hears, he hears a baby crying. And he says, "Oh no, what's wrong?" And he walks along, and there's the village potter, and the village potter's got the baby with him, and the baby's crying. And Atul says, "What's wrong? Why is the baby crying?" So, and the potter says, "He's hungry and he can't have anything to eat because the baker hasn't been able to bake any bread."
Oh,
And
okay.
Atul says, "But I've got some bread.
Uh-huh.
I'll give it to you. You can feed the baby."
Uh-huh.
Baby, and the baby falls asleep. So instead of that other noise, there's a and the potter says, "Oh, Atul, you're so good. Thank you. That's so good. I must give you a pot." And no, I don't need it. The baker gives him this pot, and it's so big he can hardly carry it. And he walks along with his pot, and he thinks, "What a funny day, because I wanted a dog, but I got a stick that turned into some bread that's turned into this great big pot." And he's walking along, and he's just getting back to the bridge across to his own side of the river when he hears that, "Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm so stupid." And he goes across the river, and there's the village washman. And Atul says, "What's wrong?" And the washman points over at some rocks, and his washing pot is smashed. He said, "I left my pot out last night, and the flood smashed it on the rocks." "Oh, I'm an idiot." And Atul said, "No. I've got this great big pot. You can have that and do the washing." And so the washerman said, "Oh, really, thank you, Atul. You're a good boy." And he takes the pot, and it's perfect. And he said, "I tell you what, I've got to give you something." And Atul said, "No, you don't need." He says, "Yeah, no, look, I've got this." And he had this great big coat, much too big for Atul. He said, "You have this because no one's ever come for it." So Atul put it around him, and he tied a bit of string around it, and he rolled the sleeves up about 8 times because it was really, really big. And he walked off as pleased as Punch with his coat. He said, "What a funny day. I wanted a dog, but I got a stick that turned into some bread, that turned into a pot, and now that's turned into a coat." And suddenly he hears, "Achoo, achoo." And he walks, and there behind the bushes beside the river is a little old man with a white beard in white long johns. He's got his underwear on, and on the bush, pegged out to dry, is a red suit with white fur on it, red trousers, and he's got black boots beside that, upside down to let the water out. And he's and sneezing and shivering, and on the ground beside him there's a little dog. And Atul says, "Oh no, what's happened?" And I mean, sorry, the old man says, "Oh, little boy, I'm frozen. I saw this little dog out in the floods, and I jumped in and I've saved him, but I'm just wet through. I'm so cold." You and I both know, don't we, what's going to happen? Atul says, "I've got this great big coat. I bet it's big enough for you. You have it, put it on, and you'll get warmed up, and you won't be cold anymore." And so the old man puts on the coat and puts his big black leather belt with a huge buckle on it over the coat. And gradually he stops shivering and stops and sneezing. And he warms up. And he warms up. He says, "Oh, you're a good boy." And he says, "Would you do me just one more favour?" And Atul, he's such a good boy. He says, "Yes, of course. What do you need?" And he says, "Do you think you could take this little dog that I've got out of the flood? I can't have him. Do you think you could take him home and have him as your dog?" Atul's really, "Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, please. Yes. Oh, yeah, I would love. Oh, yes." And he takes his little bit of string and he ties it on the dog's collar. And he walks off home and he says to himself, "What a funny day. It's a lovely day, though, because I wanted a dog, but I got a stick that turned into some bread, that turned into a pot, that turned into a coat, that's now turned into a little dog of my very own. I'll take him home and I'll teach him tricks. I'll teach him to lie down, to stay, to fetch." all like, Mummy's going to be surprised. And that's my favourite of the 3 books.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
It's a great story. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Did it take you years to think about the story, or?
No. It's loosely based on a folktale from Punjab about a boy who wants a drum. And some
Oh,
of the incidents are straight out of that, and some of them I've made up with, like, there was no dog involved.
oh, wow.
But I felt it worked better for a Christmas story with the dog rather than a drum.
Yeah.
And my latest one, which isn't finished yet, is the 3 pigs.
Oh, the
Um,
3 pigs.
so
Okay.
it's the usual story of the 3 pigs, only at the end, the house is so well built that the wolf can't climb up to go down the chimney. And the 3 pigs are trying to keep the fire going and keep the water hot because they think the wolf's going to come down any minute.
Oh,
But they fall asleep and the water goes cold. And suddenly they hear something on the roof. There's footsteps on the roof. And then whoosh, down the chimney, and there's splish. And it's a little old man in a red suit. He's got wet again. He's soaked through again, his red suit and his white fur. And it's Father Christmas. He's come down the chimney to bring their presents.
oh,
But
wow.
it's not as good a story as the Atul. I love the Atul story.
So when is that latest one coming out?
It should be out by summer, so I can do a push for it for next Christmas. Mainly, I
Oh,
use the books to give away when I do home visits because it's a nice
oh,
personal present that I've written, and it's really nice.
oh, very nice.
Sorry, I've rambled away from my scene, but is that all right?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. It's part of the whole story, because now you give us more spice as to, like, what we are getting, the books and all that. Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh no, thank you for inviting me. Well, accepting my request.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you guys like this episode, come back, and until then, stay happy and hopeful. Thank you.
Thanks then. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share. See you soon at Your Win Podcast.